Okay, hi, I'm Mike, and this is Mike's After Action Reviews. We are doing the spoiler review for Robo Vampire. If you haven't seen our non-spoiler review, the After Action review, go check that one out first. I'll put the link in the description below. So yeah, definitely go check that one out and then come back. Okay, so here we go. This is going to be rapid fire. We're going to go through all the plot points. I've written them all down. We're going to go through them, and everybody's going to comment as we go. Okay, so opening scene. Asian vampire kills guys with guns who are escorting another Asian guy. The Asian escapes as that's going on.
No idea who any of those people are.
Never mentioned again. No dialogue, no mentioning again.
Just grunting.
Never see it again.
And
no name of the movie.
No, yeah.
Well,
no, it does at the end of that.
Yeah, at the end of it,
yeah. And you're like, wait, what did that have to do with Robo Vampire? Okay, so then guys with guns capture people with boxes randomly. All of this is just random scenes that happen. Each one of my little points is random scenes that happen. Just random scenes that happen that are tied together.
And boat goes away.
And one guy is like, oh, and then they run away. Okay, then another random scene. Drug lords decide to use vampires to kill cops in a to win this drug war. And by the way, no lead up into vampires existing, vampires being a thing that they can do, anything like that. Nobody comes out of the shadows and says, I have the answer. He just randomly is like, hey, I'm going to use vampires from now on.
Well, and also the vampires in the first scene were zombies.
Right,
and they
exactly.
Jump.
And they jump. They do the jump thing, and I'll put up clips of the jumping. The vampires jump. It's really good.
Controlled by receipts.
So Asian drug then it jumps to it cuts to an Asian drug dealers, drug dealing smugglers using coffins to smuggle drugs. They're loading heroin into coffins, and in the background you see vampire statues with receipts on their faces, which apparently
keeps them under control.
Keeps them under control.
But you don't know that for the first.
So the vampires then in that scene start attacking the drug dealers. You find out that the reason that happened is because the vampires smelled that the heroin was not heroin. It was rice powder. That's just what they say. I don't know why rice powder would make vampires attack. And then as we said kind of before in the non-spoiler review, the heroin hurts or creates vampires.
It made vampires.
That shows.
It also killed them.
It was hurt. It hurts the vampires. So
it
you
was
see
the
that
rice powder that made the vampires.
Oh, but it was rice powder. That's what.
Yeah,
so it was rice powder that
made
hurts
them.
It was rice powder. Okay.
Oh, I don't.
And that's why they woke up and started attacking people. It was really weird. Yeah, it was. This part was very weird and very confusing. Then we jump to a scene, a random scene again. Random jump cuts to a scene of a random woman packing heroin into a dead cow. Now the cow, in the scene, it looks like the cow is alive. It looks like they actually on screen killed a cow, butchered a cow, and stuffed it with heroin. Okay.
This movie was not meant for that kind of special effect.
Then another random cut. All of this random.
You're gonna notice random's gonna be said a lot on this.
On another random scene jump, some Americans meet with a vampire, or meet with this guy who shows them a vampire that he created.
That's Peter.
That his name is Peter. Yeah, and we have no idea who the American people are. We just know that they're just there.
You see him.
We don't know who anybody is.
Yeah. Still don't know.
There's
anybody.
still been no dialogue.
Yep.
No.
Okay, so then a female ghost just flies in out of nowhere, and she's mad because her lover's corpse was used to create this vampire, and her lover is Peter, and you can see through her clothing. That's one big one. You can see through the clothing.
That's where the $2 million went.
Okay, so now the drug dealer and the ghost fight. And then there's even a scene where they're holding onto each other, like pushing. And as the guy steps back, and I'll put a clip up, you can see sparks fly from their feet. Okay? And actually it's funny because there's not a whole lot to say about any of this because this is literally just the fever dream that we went through is these random bullet points. Okay? So the drug dealer has the vampire. He summons the vampire to fight this ghost woman. And they're fighting. And then randomly the Americans walk up and they're like, hey, why don't you just have them marry each other and we'll control them both, won't we?
So the ghost, you missed the part where there's a whole story in Ghost Girl and Vampire Gorilla because she's like, you took my lover's corpse. He was from the east and I was from the west and we couldn't be together. And so we were going to be together in the afterworld. And I guess, I don't know, it sounded like a suicide pact, Romeo and Juliet type shit.
Something.
And it's all like that's a better story than the rest of the story, and it's all lost.
That's when you actually start hearing names.
Yes.
She finally says Peter, and we're like, oh, somebody.
One guy, yeah.
And her name is Christine, which is the most Asian name in the movie.
I don't know where you guys found that her name was Christine. I missed that. But. Okay, so then that happens, and we just randomly cut again to some drug dealers with this guy. He summons the vampire in a, and they kill a random group of DEA. Well, I say DEA, but it's not DEA. It is this universe's DEA, anti-drug group agents. And while that's going on, Tom, so one of the random anti-drug group people, he dies. The next scene.
We don't really know that that's who he is with, really.
No, you have no idea.
You don't know anything at this point yet.
Anything what the heck's going on.
So then the next scene is they show, and I'll put it like again. I'm going to put clips of all this stuff, but they show Tom and they're like somebody underneath a cloth. And they're like, and the nurse was like,
said. Shaking head.
So there's a red light, a green light that turns red, so you know he's dead. And then so they walk out of the room, and the person says, "Oh, he died." He's like, "How's Tom?" No, a guy says, "How's Tom?" And then the nurse goes, "It was a fatal injury. He's dead." And then the guy goes, "Oh, well, then we'll turn him into a robot android."
You got the contract.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes. The guy's just like, "Oh, he's dead. We'll turn him into a robot android."
And then the light turns green.
Yeah,
Okay, and I want to point out that the title of the movie is Robo Vampire. There are robots and there are vampires.
There
just
are
one
robots. There's
one
There's
robot.
one robot and
One
vampires.
robot.
There's no Robo Vampire. I was expecting like metal and fangs in the same.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So okay,
I don't know.
we're about halfway done here. Okay, so drug deal. Then another random scene jump, and drug dealers walk into a priest's house, kill him, and push down a cross. And instead of doing what any other human being in all of Earth would do, where you would pack the heroin into bags and then put it into a cross, these guys push the cross down and it breaks, and the heroin is just like stuffed into the cross like a piñata. It's just powder inside the cross. So then they capture this female agent, runs out and starts shooting them. They capture her, and that's when you see Mr. Young rape her.
That was
Sophie. Okay, so then another random scene jump after you see them start interrogating Sophie and rape her. Tom, the robot, captures a random. It's just like you just see a door. Tom kicks it in, walks in, captures a random group of drug dealers. We don't ever see them again. Okay, so then in another random scene jump, Tom is walking around the woods, and Tom and Peter fight in a random. I put Tom and Peter fight in a random scene. Peter uses sparks on Tom. Tom shoots Peter.
Tom dies and gets revived again.
Tom does die. He gets blown up in the worst possible. So even though they wasted all these resources to create Peter the vampire, he couldn't defeat Tom, and some random guy with a rocket launcher did it instead. So then there's an arm wrestle scene. Jumps to a big crowd of people.
Wait, no. The rescue. Somebody is like, "Hey, you're an agent. How much will it take for you to rescue Sophie?" I think it's worth $1 million. How about we give you 20,000? And he was like,
20,000.
30,000. And they're like, done.
Okay.
20,000. No, and they do. The guy goes like this. 20,000, and it's like 30,000. Okay, so then they do that. Then it jumps to an arm wrestle scene where there's a big crowd of people and in a big circle, like a massacre, like a concert. Okay.
And this is where Grey Cap guy comes.
Yeah, and then Grey Cap guy, he is here, and they're arm wrestling, and he gets his arm put down, and when he puts the other guy's arm down, there's the tattoo on Grey Cap's hand telling him that they're drunk. We've never seen that tattoo before.
Nope.
The
It was
audience.
supposed to be in a picture.
It was in the picture.
Of
Sophie.
Okay, there
Yeah, it
was
was
in
in
a
the
picture.
picture.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And randomly, it just so happens that
Yeah.
the guy happened to be walking by.
Yeah.
And there's
And
like
it was
hardly
Knife
any dialogue with any of these scenes.
Knife Guy's
Like-
name is either Brian or Ryan. I had that written
Knife
down.
Guy. We just
But they only said it
Just
once.
stick with that
But there's another guy
Brian.
named Brian or something. Well, anyway, so Knife Guy sees that random. Okay. So then there's an interrogation scene where so he captures that guy, and there's an interrogation scene where he says, "Where is Sophie?" Then all of a sudden, a woman walks up and she says, "I'm Andy's sister."
And we're like, "Who's Andy?"
Wendy. We don't know who Andy is.
And we don't find out for like 20 minutes.
No, an hour. We don't find out for like an hour. Okay.
The rest of the movie, pretty much.
So then a group comes in and Andy is there. He's the one with the tan shirt. We know it because we watched the movie. You don't know it yet.
Yeah, you don't know this.
You don't know this yet.
So there's another scene, a random cut scene of a drug dealer's getting attacked by Knife Guy, and then they're in this town, and they walk into the town, and then there's some people in upside down crosses.
The whole town is massacred.
Yeah, the whole town is massacred. Okay, now. And Knife Guy, or was it Knife Guy, or was it
Andy?
It was Andy. And Andy says exactly what we're all thinking.
My God. Why?
Why? Why? The problem with this scene, too, is that it looks like the drug dealers are just arriving at the town, and then Knife Guy attacks them, and then Knife Guy walks in farther into the town, and the whole town was massacred, so we were like, something was weird.
When did they get massacred?
Yeah, when did that happen?
And keep in mind, this is all in like the jungles of God knows where,
Yeah.
because they're like wandering around and there's like grass huts and
Yeah.
none of it makes any sense. You don't ever get a location. You don't
Right.
get.
Then Andy walks up to one of the people and was like, recognized them, knew who they were, and then a cutscene.
Yeah.
Goes
And we
to
never hear about it
completely
again.
random other
Exactly.
scene.
So the scene. So they stand up. And you see them stand up, and Wendy is standing like this. There's Andy's here, Knife Guy's here, and then all of a sudden you see Andy take a step forward, and immediately cuts into Wendy takes a step forward, and it immediately cuts into a scene of her now jumping naked into a lake.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you don't see anything nudity wise or anything.
No,
But so
she
she
ain't gonna
randomly
knock
is
it out.
taking a bath. Knife Guy walks up and she's like, "Oh, don't look at me," whatever. And he says, "Oh, you should bathe more." And then they have sex.
Because that line works on everybody.
With the worst kiss possible.
No, okay. So then
That's
there's
definitely worse than my first kiss.
Then there's
Let
a-
me tell you, that's
yeah.
a whole nother story.
you don't see them have sex. I think they kind of like scroll down,
Yeah,
like
they-
the camera
yeah, they-
pans up and
A
they
cutscene to
yep.
another something.
So then-
random.
Then Ghost Girl, it cuts to a scene where Ghost Girl and Peter, the vampire, start trying to have sex. They're going to do something. This is when they have the hand thing and they're like this. And then Tom walks in and she says, "Please don't kill us until we can consummate our marriage." And then Tom has a flashback of his wife who's already married him saying, "I don't want to be with you because you're a cop."
And this is finally some character development.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
We don't
First-
know anything about anybody.
At like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so they fight Tom and maybe they win. It doesn't at this point
I feel like they
Tom-
win. Don't they lock him in a coffin? Except
something.
it's just a bunch of floating.
right, but he may be dead. At this point actually the audience sees him as maybe being dead. But then we cut away to a chase scene where Wendy and Knife Guy are being chased by drug dealers and are captured randomly. They're just running away.
And they're
Okay.
away from the rest of their
Yeah,
group.
there's their team's nowhere to be found.
Random girl unties Wendy and Knife Guy at the base of the drug dealer. Then a guard jumps out of nowhere and starts attacking him, and Wendy randomly,
Stop
with
his eyes out.
no skill or anything that we've seen of her from anything, gouges his eyes out. In a terrible effect, you could tell it's just that they rubbed some paint or something on his face. Okay, so then Andy comes to rescue them, plus the Knife Guy. And this whole time, I think every one of us was like, "Where's Sophie right now?" Because they're tied up in the same place that Sophie
Right.
was, but where is she?
And she's the whole point of the, I guess the whole point of the
Yeah,
movie.
She just
Don't worry, she's coming.
Yeah.
I'm almost finished. Just a few more. Sophie is found. She is super high because she's apparently high on heroin. They blow up. Now this is Mr. Young. Notice we haven't mentioned any names yet because no names have been mentioned. They blow up Mr. Young's base. Okay. Then it jumps to Mr.
I don't ever seen Mr. Young there either. Anyway.
No, Mr.
But-
Young just.
Yeah.
So then it jumps to the big bad guy, Bill. And he's just walking away and he's like, "They've destroyed my empire. I need to rebuild it." And then Tom walks in and starts shooting up the
And he's
place.
like, you have 15 seconds.
Yep, and he-
15. 14. 13.
To put down your weapons. Yep. So then he starts to fight them, and then the vampire Peter just runs away. He doesn't run away. He hops
Yeah,
away.
they never-
and then we
they never
break
run.
into a high speed chase between Tom
Hopping.
and Tom and Peter
And
hopping.
now there's
and
no
Tom
more
is slowly.
jungle.
No, Tom is slowly walking like this, and Peter's going like this, and Peter slowly hops through an alleyway into a giant metropolitan area.
Yes. So we go
Yeah.
from jungles of who knows where to like giant metropolitan area with White Castle
Yeah.
advertisements.
So, and then that's when White Castle comes in. Use that White Castle paid for this movie, people, because there's a scene right where you see a big frame White Castle. Okay, so then as as Peter is running away, twice we see him. We see two couples that are just randomly cuts to these couples, and they're walking, and then all of a sudden one you just see a guy and he's like ah, and gets pulled away by Peter, and then another one where Peter appears behind the woman as she's about to kiss the guy, and the guy faints. So that just randomly happens. The chase between the two of them is extremely slow. There's a bridge, and you see Peter hopping like this, and Tom is like coming. He's like, I'm gonna get you, and he could shoot him. He doesn't, but it's very slow. This is winding down. Now that we come to the final battle
He
here.
doesn't even shoot him until he rolls into the crowd.
Oh, yes. So
grabs
Peter-
the people. Then he decides to start shooting at him. Like,
Peter gets down onto the ground and rolls like a child rolling down a hill,
And then we find out he can teleport.
and then he teleports away. Now Tom walks across the bridge. This is where we get to the final battle between
crazy
Peter and Tom.
random people dying scene.
So it's like Peter's standing there, Tom walks in, and then all of a sudden when it jumps back, there's another cut where it's an overhead camera, and now randomly there's 4 other vampires that are helping Peter fight Tom.
But they're not the gross face vampires, they're the white
They're
face
the normal
vampires.
vampires.
Yeah.
Black bad ones.
The American guy from the beginning of the movie is killed by Tom.
Yeah,
It's
by him.
because as Tom is walking
other time
later,
you see
he's
him.
like walking to kind of confront Peter. American guy starts.
Still wearing the same shirt.
Yeah, he's still in the same shirt. Starts shooting
how we
at
get
him,
through
and
this.
Tom turns around and kills that guy. Ghost Girl. Then, as that happens, it cuts to a scene where Ghost Girl fights the guy who created the vampire, Peter, and is defeated. But before she does that,
She just rips off
she
her
rips off her
shirt.
clothes and throws it at him, and now she has her boobs, and he hits her, and she falls down, and it doesn't even center on her face; it just centers right on her boobs, and he writes something on her chest in blood
That's
or
where
whatever.
the $2 million went.
So then Tom and Peter finally fight, where it's not Tom fighting other vampires, it's Tom actually fighting Peter. Tom, randomly, the gun that he has that's been a machine gun the whole movie,
Yeah.
starts shooting flames
Flame.
like a flamethrower
Yep.
and kills Peter.
And then Ghost Girl resurrects herself
Yeah.
temporarily to scratch the witch doctor's eyes out as her
Yeah,
last
one
living
last
act.
thing. That's
Scratch his face
Vampire.
and kill
I
him.
wrote Vampire Creator is killed by Ghost Girl's claw to the face. Claws him in the face. He dies. Okay, and then right from here we see Tom. He's just flamethrowers the guy. Starts to walk off, and it cuts to a red scene where it just says the end.
No credits.
Final
No
title
credits,
card.
none.
Final title card. No end credits. Just says the end. If you saw our non-spoiler review, we've already said we rate this movie as bad, but it's so bad that it's good. And on a scale of bad for the bad movies that are so bad they're good, this is an excellent movie if you like bad movies. So definitely you can find it on Amazon for $5. Definitely go check this one out. It is hilarious, especially if you watch it with friends.
So much fun.
Yeah, have a
So
drinking
much fun.
party or whatever. Have some get a case of beer. Have your
Drinking
buddies.
the
And we actually didn't start drinking until after the movie was over. So
So
I
you
mean,
don't even need to drink for it. It's fun.
So
so
there-
early.
so there you go, guys. That's our review. This is Mike's After Extra Review's second movie review. This is the spoiler section of Robo Vampire. Thank you guys all for watching. God bless you. Have a good day.